This is Carrick here with Game 3 of this Best of 3 series from the Wrath Unanimous Orange 2+2 tournament between Saiyen and Landlord. Saiyen is our yellow Terran in the upper right-hand corner. He is a random player, but he has spawned as Terran on this final map, which is Xel'Naga Caverns. In the lower left-hand corner, we have Landlord, who is our green Protoss, plays Protoss all the time. The first two games were PvPs. Saiyen won the first game with an aggressive tech build, and Landlord was able to win the second game with a 4-gate build and caught pretty much Saiyen with his pants down with the tech there. So it'll be really interesting now to see that he is going to play Terran. I would really looking forward to seeing what his Terran play is, especially on this map. I would expect something aggressive. Typically from random players, you expect early aggression tactics because it's just a little bit easier to master the early aggression, and then when you get in a long macro game, a lot of the intricacies of the race come into play. You can see the really quick scout out of Landlord here. He is going to go up and see that Saiyen is Terran pretty quick, and he will be able to adjust his build in more than enough time to what basically his standard PvT build will be. So he will come here and he'll see it, and we see the barracks is about to come down, and the probe will harass the SCV here. And you see the probe is jumping on the SCV ahead of time, and the SCV got there just too fast. but he is going to have to waste an SCV to chase this probe around, or he's going to harass this SCV constantly, and if he can delay the barracks, that's obviously much better for the Protoss player. And the Protoss player here, we see what went down to be up here, a 12-gate. I would expect to see a 14 gas, and that's exactly what we see right at the edge of 13 there. And the probe is leaving the base. So we can see the barracks going down. We see a 13 gas going down. Very standard opens from both players at this time. It's really hard, especially on a map like this where your opponent, and he may get this SCV. Will he get it? If he focuses it down, he should get it and be able to get away at the same time. And you can see Saiyen is trading off the other SCV, so it does delay his barracks quickly. But he does get on there pretty swiftly, and he's able to deny it. But on this map, you really need to go gas first against the Protoss, otherwise he's going to chrono boost out that Zealot and Stalker up here, and he's going to kite your Marines to alternate. You need to get the Marauders out with Marauders slow to deal with any sort of early Protoss aggression. And from the Protoss down here, we have Cybernetics Core going down, very standard. And we see an orbital out of the Terran. Nothing really out of the ordinary yet. It'd be really interesting to see if he puts an add-on here, and it is a tech lab, so it does show that he intends to go for an early Marauder. I suppose he could force out a Reaper pretty quickly to do some harass jumping up and down back here and do some scouting. But the Stalkers will take care of the Reapers pretty quickly, and you really have to catch them not paying attention. We do see a second Rax about to go down for the Terran again. The 2 Racks open against Protoss. It's been an open that Terrans have used for a really, really long time. It provides phenomenal aggression. You can expand around 40 to 50 supply really safely, and you can force fields out of the Protoss, wasting sentry energy, and sometimes you can just outright win the game if you're able to get up here. Another build you can transition into is a Ghost Aggression build, which is really, really effective. You try and land an EMP on the top of the ramp, you take down any Immortals or Sentry energy, and you can basically just march in the base and win, as Terran barracks units are really going to take care of Protoss gateway units pretty easily in equal numbers. Now we can see Concussive Slow is just about to finish, and the Marine and the Marauder take care of this probe, so he will see it coming, are going to come down here and do the early aggression. This is really, really hard for the Protoss to deal with, and you can see that he is moving out his Stalker and Zealot. He may try and get around him here, force out a Sentry, force field off the ramp, and then do his own damage up at the base here, but if he's smart and rallies his Marauders here, we can see Marauder and a Marine coming out here. It's interesting now to see the Reactor in the barracks. I think that indicates he's either going to go for some other different tech, or he's going to expand pretty quickly, and indeed that is what he's going to do, expand, but that does leave him somewhat vulnerable to Immortals and Stargate pressure. We can see he does get up the ramp here. This fight is not really in Protoss' favor right now, but he does get the 3rd unit out. Gateways are about to finish, and he's going to clean this up with no problems whatsoever. And we can see down here the Immortal does take out another unit, but it's not going to make a difference in the long run. If you look at the army supply type, we can see that the Protoss is slightly ahead of workers, but that's pretty standard. The Mule does make up for the difference of having the Chrono Boost to get the workers out. We can see the army supply is roughly equal. If we check back in the base here, we can see a 3rd barracks going up, so we're definitely going to see some very standard biocentric play behind an expansion outside out of the Terran, and we can see the Terran is going to poke up this ramp again. Don't really like this too much because it's just too easy to get force fielded out and then have those high DPS Zealots do damage to your Marauders. I mean, the strength of Marauders, I don't like him running down here. Well, he is going to be able to take care of it now. The strength of the Marauders against Zealots is that they can use the Marauder slow concussive shells to deal with him as he goes up and down the ramp, and kite the Zealots all around the place while slowing Stalkers as they come down the ramp. But the Protoss has established this position, and it's probably slightly ahead as a result of that, hit about by 3 supply. But we can see that the Protoss is also expanding, so I wouldn't expect to see much other than pokes and prods by either player right now when it comes to any sort of pushing. So we are going to see a macro game here. We do see 2 bunkers going up, which is going to make him pretty safe. I'm not sure how much he knows about the Protoss base. Really only has seen the 3 gateways and the cybernetics core, my gosh, the cybernetics core, and so it could be a 4-gate build, but he would be very safe against a 4-gate build with the positioning of these 2 bunkers, as long as he could prevent him from running basically into his main. And plus, these gateway units are very effective, and it's a little bit too late for that at this point. So he does not know the Protoss is expanding it. His expansion is done, and the orbital has been made, but he has yet to swap it out here. We do see him loading up the bunker, so the fact that he's loading up bunkers up here makes me think that he is going to use this orbital in base here. That's okay, and so you get full saturation, you get the extra mules. It's really not a huge deal. You just need to do a little bit bigger of an SAV transfer down here, but you do want to get down there as quickly as possible. We see him continuing to push up bio. He has started +1 attack, and the Protoss is about to finish his Nexus down here, and he is very safe, and he knows he's very safe, although he has not seen the expansion up here yet, and I'm not sure he's even seen the other command center building, but based off the number of units that he's seen, I would think he would have to assume that some sort of expansion is coming. And either way, with very good sentry play down here, he should be okay. And we can see the Terran is finally moving out into the middle of the map, and we'll be building bunkers here, creating a very, very safe position. And this observer is about to tell all in just a moment. Down here with the Protoss, we haven't seen any sort of tech quite yet. We do see 2 gases at the main. We have not seen any gases at the natural yet. This could indicate that the Protoss is going for some sort of timing push. I'm interested to see what he does with the robotics facility, and he does create a robotics bay, which is going to allow him to make Colossus. So we could see a very strong 2-base Colossus gateway push out of the Protoss, which is pretty hard for Terrence to deal with. He's going to need to make Vikings to deal with the Colossus, and Medivacs to help heal his units, and the timing. If the Protoss hits the timing on this push right, it can be extremely deadly to the Terran, especially if he can force him to engage in a choke here while harassing his main, or in a choke here while harassing his natural. The Terran's really going to want to make sure he engages out in the wide open here, otherwise the pure DPS of the Colossus is really going to be way too much to handle. We do see a Forge going down from the Protoss, and a 3rd gas being taken, so this all looks very standard so far. I assume he'll push out +1 attack, which makes that Colossus damage stack so much harder. From the Terran here, we just see Factory going down, which is an interesting choice. He probably is just doing that to go to Stargate play. I would love to see some sort of Ghost Academy. Those EMPs can be really, really deadly against any sort of Protoss push. And just basically you're taking off a huge chunk of health of anything you hit, as well as depleting that really necessary sentry energy that he's going to use to try and bottle up the units. And from the Protoss here, we see him using his Chrono Boost on his Nexus to get some probes out, and I assume also using it on the upgrades and the Colossus tech itself. We do not see thermal lance being researched quite yet, but I assume that just as the push timing is getting ready to happen, we will see that come out. And I was wrong. We do have +1 armor coming out of the Protoss rather than +1 attack. I would prefer +1 attack personally, but I don't know that much about Protoss, so perhaps I'm wrong about that. It does allow them to handle the Zealots and the Stalkers, the meat shield of the gateway units, to handle the Marauder and Marine DPS a lot easier. We do see Thermal Lance being researched, as well as another Colossus being made. We do see the Stargate coming up, and an Armory. The Armory, I assume, is to help him get double upgrades out of these 2nd Engineering Bay and the 1st Engineering Bay. That's about to pop out. And a reactor going on the factory that'll be lifted and used, swapped with Starport, and Starport will be used to make Vikings and Medivacs. Not sure if I'm sure he's seen the Colossus and expects Colossus at this point, so I do expect we'll see some Medivacs and Vikings. This observer is sitting here seeing absolutely everything the Terran is doing with the Engineering Bay. What's really smart is just build a turret right here at the beginning or at the front of your base. It's cheaper than a scan, and it'll provide you permanent insurance that that observer's not going to see you the instant you move out. Like it normally would, which obviously allows the Protoss to position his army perfectly and be right where he wants. Now with the 2 Colossus count, I would expect him to see him start moving up the map now, probably placing a proxy pylon around here or here if he is going to attack. And we do see the factory being used for scouting, but it's not going to get there nearly in time. The Protoss is getting ready to push, and he does have the much better army at this point. It's really going to come down to micro and where they engage, but without the Viking or Medivac support out yet, it's going to be a little bit difficult for the Terran. We do see 2 Medivacs finally coming out, and the bunkers being emptied. So we are going to see a push out of the Terran here. It would be best if he just positioned himself in the middle here. He doesn't really know where the Protoss army is yet. I would love to see a scan at the front of the base so he knows what to expect. The Protoss, of course, did see him moving out. So we're going to see the Terran come up here and take a position at the tower. So he is going to see this Protoss army when it comes in. And we see the Protoss army retreating back to his base as he sees a Terran push coming, because he would much rather prefer to engage him here and here with the support of his own pylons to warp in units than engage him at the top. I don't like the Terran pushing into this. I wish he would maybe take a third of the gold and try and engage him out in the open. Here he's going to get cut up by force field. So here comes the big engagement. We can see a big hit by the Colossus. They're doing a ton of damage to the Terran units, but the Terran units are kiting the Zealots very, very effectively. He is going to get away. Oh no, he is coming back into them. The Terran really should retreat at this point. He doesn't have the medevac energy necessary to engage this army anymore. They're just so low due to the stems and due to the rakes of the Colossus that he's not going to be able to handle it. And of course, 2 Colossus, I assume that there's a 3rd Colossus on the way, and there it is, are going to do so much damage. If we look at the units lost tab, we can see that the Terran has lost slightly more than the Protoss. The army sizes are a bit even, but again, the Protoss tech is just much better, and with only 1 medevac in this army, pretty much at 3/4 health, it's going to be difficult for the Terran to deal with this. He is pumping out Vikings, but we can see the Terran's macro has slipped considerably with 1,000 minerals in the bank and 600 gas. If we look at equal army supply, the Terran really could have a much bigger army. He could have about 6 to 8 Vikings out. And deal with the Colossus a lot better. Around 7 Vikings is what you need to start killing the Colossus at effective numbers. But the Protoss is going to jump up in here. We do see a stim from the Terran. Look how weak that makes his army. Really nice force fields trapping the army there, just lining him up right for the Protoss to rake through him. This battle will not be close at all. The Protoss will be able to steamroll through the Terran units. We can see making a nice little cup around the back of them so they can't escape, and if he had any Zealots, they could come up and do the TPS. And this game is effectively over, as the Terran doesn't have anything left to deal with the Protoss, the strength of the Protoss army. And the Terran really just let the Protoss get way too ahead in tech here. He waited too long to do any sort of pressure. He allowed just enough time for Thermal Lance to finish, and then he did an engagement down here where he basically accomplished next to nothing in attacking that choke other than hurting his units, and didn't macro effectively and just fell behind. As Terran, if you're going to stick to gateway units, you need to stay ahead in macro and supply in order to defeat the superior tier 3 Protoss tech. So Landlord will finally collect his rent from Saiyen. Sorry, I had to do the joke. And we'll take this best of 3 matchup. Saiyen, who is a random player, did play extremely well in his first game as Protoss, took a gamble, it paid off. In the second game, he took essentially the same gamble, and Landlord said there will be none of that, 4-gated him, and was able to take care of him. And in the third game, just simply the superior macro of Landlord and the superior timing push of Landlord really punished Saiyen for what was a Terran build that did look a little bit lost. But that that's what happens when you play as random. You don't have such an intricate knowledge of each race, and you rely on your early aggression doing damage. So thanks, guys, and hope to cast more games from this tournament, and hope you guys enjoy watching them going forward.